Hey y'all, I hope your day's been really good. So, I want to share, well, it's an inspirational video and incredibly sad all at the same time. With summer disappearing, we have gone over every possible scenario that there is, I believe. I just don't know what else could pop up, but it her disappearance has brought a great awareness to me, and I know to other people, about the tragedy of sex trafficking children. Trigger warning, the whole video is a trigger warning. It's heartbreaking, and not a lot of people make it out of that. Not in one piece. And it's a growing problem. It grows every year. And that's sad to say, and it's hard to believe. It is a tragedy. It is a sickness that the world seems to be infested with. The violence that goes along with it is really despairing, and it's heartbreaking that children, young adults, get sucked into this seedy, horribly disgusting world of trafficking. And the sad thing is a lot of the people that make it out, they don't ever really see justice when it comes to their abusers, because there's so many, for one, and they just get passed around and around. And I hope with everything in me, nothing like this has happened this summer, or any of the other missing children. Not Michael, not. It's just a problem that I think that we have to educate ourselves on. We have to keep talking about it, as uncomfortable as this subject is. It is so uncomfortable to think about people abusing innocent children, getting them hooked on drugs, just exploiting them the way that they are. But I'm going to share 3 stories with you, and then and these 3 people have made it out, and so that gives you hope that others can make it out. Unfortunately, they don't all make it out, though, and the ones that do seem to reach out and want to help others. And I think that's where the healing can come from, um, being there for other children that make it out. Just like, over in Texas, and I still haven't done that story, but, 70 people, 70 survivors escaped the trafficking. And now the healing begins, and that's a long road, and it's probably lifelong. I would say they experience nightmares on a daily basis, fear, uh, PTSD. You could probably go on and on. So, um, this first story I'm going to share with you, it's only a minute long. It's not very long. This is not going to be a very long video. Um, So I'm going to go ahead and mute out and play this one clip, okay?
I've never really spoken his name.
The man, Talicia Espinosa, says trapped her into sex trafficking. 5 years, moved through a dozen states.
This was in Las Vegas.
Talicia won't say his name, but begs that you listen to what she saw and survived.
You know, I think about this picture. That day I probably slept with maybe 20 to 30 men. I've had to jump out of moving vehicles. I've had to run for my life. Girls that have been murdered, girls that have been abused, and still had to come out into the streets.
Bound to that life, not by chains or locks, but by emotion.
I carried so much shame and guilt. This city needs to be aware, and they need to say, no, we're not going to take it in our city. I'm just so thankful to God that I'm not where I used to be. I'm not enslaved in my mind, and I'm not enslaved in body. I am going to make a difference.
Talicia has no idea what happened to the man who she says brainwashed her into sex trafficking. She left him 11 years ago in Las Vegas, never looked back, and never prosecuted.
How heartbreaking is that? This young girl, she says, that picture of her, I hope y'all could hear that. The volume didn't sound very loud to me. But she said that day that picture was taken, she was with 20 to 30 people, men. How, I can't even imagine. Against your will, she's seen people killed and beaten. And at a young age, she was forced over and over and over to be with people that probably repulse her as a young child. But she did escape, and you can see the pain in her eyes. And can you imagine having to live with that? It's really heartbreaking. I'm going to share another story with you. And I do want, this to be educational, because listen to this next story. This girl from a very upper middle class area, good area, was targeted in her school. And I think her message is important because there's so many people out there right now that their children are on social medias, and that is a really, really big way that they are targeting children. Just like Sherfy Jr., he was sending that inappropriate material through Snapchat and Facebook Messenger, and there's just so many outlets on the internet, and you don't know who is on the other side of that computer, as you'll hear this story. Have a listen.
Now from Washington, D.C. Courtney, thank you so much for joining us. I know Katy, Texas very well. Family members live in Katy. It's one of those ideal suburbs, right? This is where nothing bad is supposed to happen. You were targeted on social media, and help me understand this, because they were operating through fellow high school students?
Correct. Yes, I was unfortunately and unknowingly being targeted by multiple groomers and trafficking networks right at my own high school, and the two ways that they had access to me were in person, during school hours, on campus, in plain sight, and also through devices and technology and social media such as Instagram and Snapchat.
You know, over the course of nearly a year, you developed this relationship with this individual online. What were the things that he was talking to you about to gain your trust?
So initially, this was somebody who I had not, in fact, met in person, but this was a friend of mutual friends, people who could vouch for this individual and, a familiar face, somebody who I did have that sense of familiarity with and comfort level enough to begin confiding in this person about the hardships and things that I was enduring and wearing my heart on my sleeve and being an empath and just wanting to see the best in people. I gradually got taken deeper and deeper in, and that power dynamic and control of fear begins to take place once the charm begins to fade away and they begin to reveal their true motives.
So there were kids in the school, high schoolers, or people in the school, I should say, tied to the individuals online.
Yes, it was horrible. How I was actually put on the radar of my first trafficker at my school is because, in fact, after being a victim of sexual assault, which I think it was so incredibly important how you touched on that earlier with Sarah, because 1 in 6 women will either have an attempted sexual assault or completed sexual assault within their lifetime in the United States. That's unacceptable. At my own high school, once I discovered after being assaulted and harassed at my school that students had filmed me unconsensually and had disseminated that content without my knowledge, it ended up in the hands of a child pornography, also known as child sexual abuse material, ring right at my own high school by fellow students in my grade, and people approached me after seeing this because it is the worst nightmare that can happen to a high school female student is to have this become your reputation. It doesn't matter who I was my whole life before, and that is how I was put on the radar of these groomers in my first.
The high school, Courtney's former school district in Katy, Texas, did release a statement, and it says, it is our mission to provide safe and secure learning environments that support the physical and emotional well-being of students. As such, the district actively partners with community services, law enforcement, and families to participate in, as well as offer informational and training sessions that educate and build awareness among staff and community members. Courtney, though, back to you and the story with you. You eventually, with this person, you found, you thought you loved him. You thought this trafficker had broken you down so, and you started to believe that there was love there. And then you were sold to traffickers for a finder's fee of $500, or as you put it, $500 for my life.
You could never have told me that would be my journey. It took a time to get to that journey, and I became unrecognizable not only to my peers and my parents, but to myself as well. And I was free-falling through life, and they put everything out there that they believed that I needed for me to grasp onto, and they became my rock. They told me they were the only people who would love me for everything that had happened to me, and now everything and every bit about who I had become, who my trauma had made me, not my true self, not who God created me to be, not my identity found in my trauma, but that is what they capitalized on in order to exploit me from it.
Courtney, you're so strong. Let me tell you, you are so strong. At 17, as we said, you were lured into this sex trafficking ring. This went on for several years. How were you finally able to escape?
So after several years of being trafficked across the country, being sex trafficked and assaulted and harassed and taken advantage of and exploited for profit on a daily basis during what should have been my senior year of high school, I was trafficked across the country after so many times that I had fled, and I was brought back in to different trafficking networks. God had instilled in me and had been working on my heart. You are surrounded and in the face of literal evil, Cameron. And I can tell you right now that I have been in the face and in the darkest of darkest places. But when they took everything from me, when they broke me in every way I didn't know a human being could possibly be broken, the one thing they could not take from me was my faith. And I'm so incredibly fortunate to have an upbringing that I am so privileged to have, but so many people do not, because that was such an important part in partnering that with the truth that came from my identity being found as a Christless child of God, was that I was worth it, and God spoke to me that I needed to run and fight for my life. God does exist and listen and answer prayers, and he mourns. He mourns, and his heart is so broken for the broken people, further perpetuating and hurting and creating more broken people in our broken world and society. But I heard that voice of truth. And it reminded me that I was worth fighting for, and that I had people who were worth fighting for, and that I needed to believe in that I was made for so much more than all of this. And that's what I want to speak value and worth into every single victim and survivor and person who is impacted by the scourge of human trafficking. And that day when I found and reclaimed my identity, my true identity, I fought like hell with everything in me to get out.
I introduced you by saying that you are currently in Washington, D.C., and I can reveal to the Tampa and the reason why Courtney's in Washington, D.C. is because after 2 years after escaping trafficking, she was appointed to the United States Advisory Council on Human Trafficking. And her life mission is to end trafficking around the country and anywhere that it happens.
Sorry. Got a little choked up there. It is absolutely appalling that people are preying on our children. And we have to do everything that we can to protect them. I wasn't going to share this, but I think I'm going to. I'm going to show you some of the things that, when it comes to branding our children, that are being forced into this industry, I guess you could call it. I'll just quickly go through these. This is literally what they're doing to these girls and boys, and they degrade them and make them feel like they are nothing. And oftentimes they are the property of, they brand them. And this is an example of people who are doing tattoo work to cover up the tattoos that they're forced to look at, if they are lucky enough to make it out. And a lot of them don't make it out. But they brand them, and these people, if they have to look at these every day of their life, and it's like a constant reminder of everything that they have been put through by these people. And just like that girl, she was targeted at school, and we can't trust anyone. We have law enforcement that have been arrested for these kind of things. We have doctors, we have judges, we have teachers, you can't trust anyone with your children, and your children's lives are the most important thing. They're our future, and they need protecting from these evil people who have no regard for human life, and do not care one bit to destroy someone. Let me get rid of this. And it's alarming. And the reason I wanted to show you those tattoos is because if you're ever out in public, I just think we need to be aware. We need to just keep talking about this. If you see like a tattoo that is like, they put numbers on them, they're not even a name anymore, they're property of. And if we see anything like that, we need to contact our law enforcement. Whether, like I said before, whether we're right or wrong, because it is it's happening everywhere. It's not just the city. It's not. It is everywhere, and people are targeting. To them, a child is a commodity that they can sell over and over and over. Like this one girl that said 20 to 30 men in one day. That is, this is unacceptable. And that's why I don't have a problem wanting these sick individuals to be branded, because if they are going to they repeat offenders, they're going to continue to do this, then, you know, we need to have some kind of way to identify them. It would help us so much. It's in every town, small towns, large it's everywhere. And our children are not even safe on the computer in their own home, like this young girl. And she was trafficked across the country. It, okay, let me play this one other testimony.
My name is Lori. I am bold, brave, blunt, willing to fight, and that comes from a lot of the things that I've been through in my life. I was born in Chowchilla State Prison. My mother was fighting murder at the time when she had me. At 2 days, I was adopted by a single mother who worked 3 jobs in order to provide for me. I had a very normal childhood in the very beginning up until the age of 8 when I was molested by a family friend. By the time I was about 9 and a half, 10 years old, I experienced a rape, and there was no justice that was ever served. I didn't receive any counseling. My mother never had a conversation with me about it. I think it was very hard for her. So it was all these feelings of like insecurity and feeling like I don't belong, guilt and shame and dirtiness was bottling up inside. I ended up running away and met a friend. We went to this house, which was like a drug house. She left me and said, I'll be right back. In that house was a male sitting on the couch right next to me. For the first time in my life, somebody asked me, was I okay? After the rapes, after the molestation, after all the bullying, somebody finally asked me, was I okay? I told that man my life story in 30 seconds. And he didn't have to come and look for me. Like, he didn't have to come hunt like how normal traffickers do. I stood right on his doorstep. I was a kid in need. I needed shelter. I needed clothes. I needed food. And I was going to need someone to take care of me because I was only 11 years old. And I just remember this look in his eye was just like this. I got her. And he started to groom me. And then that grooming process is he was preparing me to be trafficked. And I remember just freaking out in the back seat, like scared. He got out, was yelling, why are you crying? And he hit me. I want to just go home. I want to go home. And he was just like, where are you going to go? Nobody wants you. And I believed those lies. And he grabbed me by my hair and drugged me down the street. And my knees were scraping the floor. There was other women out there. Nobody did anything. When you have been forced to sleep with 7 to 15 men and be raped and be 11 years old, I was like slowly dying. And after the first night, you suppress those feelings because any inch of hope that you have, any sense of I can get out, any feeling of there's a God, any feeling of I don't deserve this, you get beat. You ain't gonna survive out there. By the time I was 12 years old, within a year, I was already raped over 4,000 times. It took me to be 4.5 years in the life until I was 15 years old for someone to finally step up and do something. And that was a man. His name is Jim Carson. And he was the first person in my life to tell me that I was a victim. It was never a choice. It's not a choice for these kids. Whether it was an influence, someone influenced them, whether it was somebody physically forced them into it. They're children whose dreams and innocence was stolen and snatched from them. children who need someone to fight for them because they can't fight for themselves, showing up when they don't expect you to, and saying, I care about you, I'm here for you, and I'm not giving up on you. I was starting to see what hope looked like.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being so open. I think there are a lot of misconceptions about what sex trafficking looks like. For example, a lot of people picture, the van with the dark windows and women that are chained up. But in your case, it was manipulation. At 11 years old, I remember wanting to be liked and wanting to feel like I belong. Like, that's all that man needed to show you.
A lot of times, too, a misconception is people automatically think it's somewhere else. Like, it doesn't happen here.
Yes.
It doesn't happen right here in our backyard. A lot of times, that's why we call it the invisible crime, especially nowadays because of social media.
Yes.
Like, traffickers are using social media in order to recruit young girls.
Okay, this is so important. I think a lot of parents tend to be naive when it comes to social media.
As parents, we think, not my kid.
Yes.
My kid is smart enough to not talk to a stranger. And all it takes is a click of a button, and now I'm following you. And now I'm on your page, and I'm seeing that you're a minor, and boop, now I'm in your inbox. And now we're having a dialogue and a conversation.
But also, people think it's a certain type of person. It's the dirty old man who is going to buy sex with a child. But from your experience, it's the guy you would never assume, right?
It's not. It's men who are married, men who, different professionals in the field. I've had conversations with these men after things had happened in that hotel room or in that apartment, and talking about their children, talking about their wives. Like, this is the reality and what's going on. Like, it's not what we think.
So they're having sex with a child, and then just kind of matter of fact telling you about their own children?
And going home right to their own family. It's crazy.
You are such an incredible example of the fact that our past doesn't have to define us. If you hadn't told me your story, I wouldn't know. You're full of life, you're vibrant, you're funny, you're gorgeous. And the fact that you've gone through this hell and you are now using it, you're working with Saving Innocence, which is an organization that is working to end sex trafficking.
Yes. Everything I went through in life was in order to be able to help someone else. Now, I got hired on a Saving Innocence about a year and a half ago. So I go into the juvenile halls, the same juvenile halls I used to be at, and I get to work with the kids on prevention work. I get to be that person that I didn't have when I was a kid.
The fact that you're using all that pain that you've been through to now help others is so inspiring to me.
You can overcome anything. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be a victim of sex trafficking. She can be divorce. It can be your kids are driving you crazy, or your kids are just trying to figure themselves out, and to know that it doesn't last forever.
Yeah.
And that I can always send the elevator back down for someone and lift someone up instead of tearing someone down for what they've been through. Everyone has a story. We all have been through something that has affected us and has made an impact in our lives that can help someone else out.
But instead of letting that stuff define you, you are using it to help people who are walking through the hell you walk through.
Because it's just only one small part. It doesn't define me. It doesn't define us.
Do you know your worth now?
Yeah. Most definitely.
Love it.
Just, and every day is still such a beautiful learning moment, though. Just to be able to be a mother to my daughter and to give her this beautiful life that I didn't have, that's a good feeling.
Man, those three women are amazing. I don't know that I could come through something like that and be as strong as they are. I really don't. At 11 years old, she said 7 to 15 people a day, and they broke her down. 11. Let me tell you a story that happened over here where I live. So, for about a couple years, I took my kids to this one church, and it was just such a loving atmosphere, and the people were, we're country folk, and so, but very welcoming, and all the hospitality, and the preacher was a married man. He had children and grandchildren in the church, and very involved, and I just felt led to take the kids somewhere else. So we left that church, and a year later, on the front page of the newspaper, there was the pastor for essaying children in the church. I've always been kind of a overprotective mother, and my kids hated it, but I was floored. You cannot trust your children with anybody. Like this girl says, it can be anybody. She had married men coming and taking advantage of her and then going home to their wives and children. If we can learn anything at all from all of these kind of stories, is that we really need to be very vigilant with our children to make sure that they are safe, because people are out there on the other side of a computer preying on them. Praying. And the girl before this video, the one that's working in Washington, she said she was AR'd, and it was recorded, and it was spread around. And of course, it was all turned over to, the sex trafficking ring and all. And so that is out in what I read earlier today, that most children, I wish I had recorded this clip. I swear I had some technical issues. Surprise. But by the time children are in middle school, it's highly likely that they have sent some kind of inappropriate picture to someone else. That is forever out there. And we need to educate our children, make them aware that you can't do stuff like that, because it's forever out there, and it could be in the hands of a really sick, demented person. And like they said, it's not the creepy guy in the white van. This is predominant people in the world. Schools. We have to educate our children. We have to educate ourselves first. So, okay. Very emotional. And I just think it really is heavy. I know this is a heavy topic. The next two videos that I'm going to share with you, and I got to tell you, this is happening all over the place. There are people out there who realize this is going on and know that these people, if they make it out of the sex trafficking, and they're branded, and they're having to look at that every day, and it makes their self-worth diminish. They're having to relive that every day, looking at property of or whatever. But there are people across the United States that are aware of this and are doing tattoos free of charge to cover up these things. There's this one guy who not only does sex trafficking, but he also covers up gang tattoos and racist tattoos, and anything that holds these people to their past. I mean, just take a gang example. They have gang signs, and no matter where they go, if they're going for a job interview or whatever, or just walking down the streets, people can look and say, oh, that's a gang member. And even though they may be out of it now, they can still be a target. So these people are literally changing people's lives by just doing this kind act of love, unconditional love, free of charge, to help these people with a new beginning. All right, I'm gonna play this first one. It's only a minute and 23 seconds.
Survivors who get away from traffickers are often left with a permanent reminder of captivity. Tattoos or property, marking that show just they have a number, not a name, or who they belong to. Well, there is a group in Georgia, in Alpharetta and Covington, working to cover up these tattoos. They transform these reminders of pain into something that turns out to be beautiful.
Been on the street for human trafficking. They see the sign and they know this is a place I can go to and they'll help me.
Experience freedom, recovery, and redemption. We often hear about human trafficking and we hear about the signs. A part of that is the tattoos as being a sign of recognizing somebody being trafficked, and we partnered with over 27 artists across the state.
To feel like they can fully process this and fully heal and move on, sometimes it's as simple as getting rid of that mark.
But while they're here, I think they find a healing that they didn't expect that they would get.
It really helps them move on with their lives.
She's like, now I don't have to look at that and remember my past.
There's that psychological chain that keeps you there with that tattoo. So once you go through that cover of that tattoo, you are breaking that psychological chain and you're able to fully be set free and continue to walk in your freedom.
So if you ever notice a number like this or a trafficking tattoo, reach out to the National Human Trafficking Hotline. It identified more than 7,000 victims last year alone.
And like I said, across the United States, this is going on. This is the people are performing this service to help people move on and try to heal from their past, so that it just doesn't, it's not right there in their face, haunting them day in and day out. I'm going to share this one last video.
Yeah, we do regular tattoos, but we focus on helping people get a second chance. We do that by removing or covering the tattoos that mark who they used to be, whether it be a gang tattoo, a sex trafficking related tattoo, domestic violence related tattoo, or scars from self-harm or cutting.
This tattoo was meant as a disrespect to the opposite gang, to our rival gang. So him helping us change our lives around and get these tattoos, off of us, is the first step to us to changing and making a better life for ourselves,
As a kid, I lost 17 friends. They were killed due to gang violence, shootings, stabbings, and it was a rough way to grow up. When I moved here to the Chicago area, I watched the news just like everybody else every day, and tired of watching kids die. And I've been a tattoo artist for 23 years, and I wanted to use those gifts to make some kind of an impact in the community and try and help people that were getting out of that life, that were ready to move forward and do something more positive.
It would be a lot easier for me to get better positions at a job, to get taken more serious, and also for me to be a lot more safer on the streets. That way I don't have the rival gang members coming at me, trying to pretty much, do physical harm on me.
You get that GED, I'll give you any tattoo you want, free.
I decided that I wanted to remove my tattoos because I want to change my life. I'm trying to get old friends back, and I'm tired of getting profiled by other people.
The tattoos that we remove, they're not meant to be positive messages or uplifting things. They're negative, they're adversarial, and just having that tattoo could be a death sentence.
I got tired of having to run for my life, always looking over my shoulder wondering when I'm going to jail next.
We work with a great team of federal law enforcement folks. I have a lot of friends that are police officers, and You know, I'm sure every time you encounter a police officer, like, hey, what's that on your face? And, you know, we give business cards to police officers to keep in their cars. So when they pull somebody over and they've got a teardrop or a gang symbol, whatever, give them a business card. Say, hey, it's a great bridge between police and the community. Hey, we're offering you something that's free that's going to help you if you're truly wanting to lead that life. So a lot of friends ask me, you know, why you do this for free. We do it for free because, to be quite honest, a lot of the people that we come into contact with, they don't have the money to afford tattoo removal or a tattoo cover-up. My satisfaction, my joy comes from being able to see people get that second chance and look in the mirror and not have that crown over their eye or that barcode on their neck, to see their reaction of what it means to them. That makes all the difference to us.
It makes me feel like he cares about me and that he wants me to help change my life, get my life back on track.
The first day that I came here, it really touched me a lot because he also prayed for me. And every time I come here and I talk to him, he's always giving me positive advice, and I appreciate what he does for us.
Every day that I can help somebody out makes it a whole lot easier to go to sleep at night. And if we were all a lot more kind to one another, this city would be a lot better place than it is right now.
How awesome is that? Heroes all over the place. You just never know. You just use your talent, whatever your talent is, whatever your gift is, to try to make the world a better place, you know. And these people are reaching out and helping people that have gone through all kinds of things in their life, and I commend them. I praise them. That it's an amazing thing. And then these three girls that have lived that are turning around trying to help other people, other children, and bringing awareness to parents and family members, so that we know what we need to do to protect our own children. And if you still have young children, give them a big hug and tell them you love them. And if you have adult children, do the same. I mean, it happens to all ages. So, and boys are not exempt to this. Boys come up missing all the time too. So we need to be talking to not just our girls, but also our boys, and making them aware of some of the signs and some of the ways that people are trying to target them in their lives. And it's sad that that's where we are. It's sad that we have to even think about this kind of stuff. But the fact that it's happening, and it's happening all over the place, unfortunately, that's the world we live in today. It's an ugly world. Well, I hope y'all have a great night, and I'll be talking to y'all soon.